few people are aware of a little-known series of interventions of heaven. In 1985, it happened here in Ireland, and it just happens that we had a bit to do with the consequences for the all-night vigils at the Abbey were a direct consequence of this. I used to go for the all-night vigil at the grotto at Mount Melleray where it happened, and then they moved to the Abbey for the winter months and drew hundreds and hundreds. It was in 1985. What is known within Ireland itself is that there was the phenomenon of the moving statues. But what is less known is that Our Lady actually did appear. And it was on the 16th of August, the day after the Assumption of that year, that she was first seen there at the grotto of Mount Melleray, which is just below the big abbey, the Trappist monastery, the mother house of other houses. So the family, it was the O'Rourke family, had come to the grotto to pray. Having recited the rosary, the family started to leave. As Ursula, a little girl, was leaving the grotto, she looked up at the statue and she noticed that Our Lady was moving. First, she thought that it was her imagination, and she looked away several times before she finally realized that she was looking at the Blessed Virgin Mary. A strange feeling came over me, which is very hard to describe. Tears came to my eyes. Now, on it goes. And she asked the Blessed Virgin, "Please bless all my family." Blessed Virgin smiled even more. She did not speak during this vision. Now, what happens is eventually there are a few little children involved, Tom and Barry with her, and Barry has since died in a motorcycle accident in the area down there, fairly young. And then she began to talk to them. An interesting message which came through was, "Preserve Sunday for prayer." Now that's important. Already some years ago, the bishops in Ireland had warned us to warn the people not to start arranging sporting events for Sunday morning. When that happens, we know the consequences. But now, of course, compared with 1985, things have become very different. They've become significantly different after the COVID, but that's another story. However, the question of Sunday for prayer is important. We must remember that the Saturday evening Mass was very late in coming into both England and Ireland. And when this was happening, as far as I remember, there wasn't yet the anticipation, but it was coming in, and this damaged the Sunday considerably. We have no right to have, just like that, a Sunday without God, just a free Sunday, a free day. It has no sense for the Christian. And not only that, but it's not just a question of having the Holy Mass in the Sunday, but it's a day with the Lord, a day of rest. And when recreation becomes so energy-consuming, time-consuming, attention consuming, that God is thrown out of the window in practice, then there is a problem. And then the messages started to get somewhat grave. Initially there was the insistence that her message was peace and prayer. Tell the people that the water is blessed. I remember actually having friends who went down there. One was a Protestant, and she had this friend whom I know well as her boyfriend, and he said to her in Welsh, "Rhod y law and fanna, put your hand in there," because she had a wart or something on it, and she did, and it was healed. And then questions there about whether there were statues moving in the same way in other parts of the world. And her reply was only in Ireland. And it was a phenomenon. And I heard that, because I remember I was in Ireland in the mid-80s, I was in Roscrea in 1986, and people were still talking about it. It was still moving actually in Ballyspitton at the time. The big one in Cork, just outside. We went down. And my spiritual father also saw it moving. His name was Dr. Ryan, he's dead now. And it was something that was played down by the hierarchy, and people have wondered whether that was the best reaction to it, because if it was happening all over the Republic, it meant that there was a reason for it. In fact, it was causing so much grief among the Protestants in the north that some people came, I understand, from the north and tried to demolish the statue. I think they chopped off the head. But anyway, it was put back and started to move again. So that there was, therefore, in the way that the Irish people would understand, a clear, quiet message, not dissimilar actually to what happened at Knock. There was no noise at Knock, but she was there. And therefore, just moving these statues there were always grottos of Lourdes, all over Ireland in the Republic. By having those move, it meant that she was significantly, quietly in her way, getting through. Pay attention. And what was she getting at? Well, here we have some of the things that she was saying through these little children. God is angry with the world. That's interesting. The people will have to improve and pray. My message is for all the people of God's church. The people have 10 years to improve and pray, and if not, then this will happen. And then they were given a vision. It was the vision of Noah's Ark. There are some consoling elements. I love the Irish people. I am praying with the people to God to forgive the Irish people, and I want the Irish people to spread my message to the world. Notice how she speaks in the Irish way. Ye have ways yourselves of spreading my message. The world must improve, that's said several times. If the people would improve and pray, God would save Ireland. People must pray more. People must go to Mass more and receive my Son more often. The world has 10 years to improve. It must improve 10 times. Then the question about the weather. It was bad weather at the time. When the people will pray, the weather will improve. It was the custom to recite one decade of the Rosary in Irish, in Gaelic, and the children noticed that when that was happening, the lips of Our Lady were moving in a different way, and she was participating in the Gaelic of the people. Interesting. She was using the Irish language. God is pleased with Ireland. Ireland will be saved. Now, there is one particularly troubling part of this message. It's this. The world must improve, and the world must believe. If the world does not improve, the devil will take over the church. And again shortly afterwards, if the world does not improve, the devil will take over God's church in 10 years. Now, we hadn't a clue what that meant. It was most puzzling, but observing patterns, it seems that there are strange forces infiltrating, and quite often the loudest voice is the one that carries the day. And it's not the way that the sensus fidelium should be exercised and perceived. It's not about decibels. It's about the Holy Spirit. And the Holy Spirit does not work in decibels. A heart which is not in contact with the Holy Spirit is doing its own thing. Those hearts that are genuinely tranquil are far more likely to perceive his impulses. Decibels exclude delicate impulses, and the voice of man prevails.